What's up guys, I'm Nick and this is Build Dev Build. Come here newbie, we got you. Okay, so you've received your xTool D1. Now what, right? That's a big question if this is your first laser. So what I want to do today is just kind of take you through Laserbox Basic and get you familiar with it, because it is kind of a bare bones tool, but it will get you working on your laser pretty quick without having to learn another software like Lightburn or Laser Gerbil or something like that. So we're gonna head up to my office in just a second, but I did want to point out one thing. I will show you and then I'll probably circle back around to it again just to show you again, because this is kind of important and people miss this. Okay, behind your button here, you've got this little white guy. That is a reset button. Right next to there, there's a switch. When you're doing firmware upgrades, that switch needs to go, if you're facing the machine, to the left. And when you're not doing upgrades, it needs to go to the right or towards the button. What this does is it allows the firmware on the motherboard to be rewritten, but you don't want to have it in that position while you're doing production things. You can get the extraneous code in there and it can cause your project to fail. So I'm sorry that I don't really have the best camera lens for this, but there's a little switch right there, buttons right there. Make sure that unless you're upgrading your firmware, this switch is pushed as far towards the button on the machine as possible. Okay, so we're gonna head upstairs and jump into the software. But I did want to let you guys know that if it's still around St. Patrick's Day, they're having a huge sale over on xTool's website. I'll link it down below. Huge St. Patty's Day sale, a lot of deep discounts, a lot of discounts on materials if you're interested, or if you're watching this video because you're thinking about getting an xTool D1, follow that link. Now is the best time to buy one. Okay, so you've downloaded Laserbox Basic from the website and you've installed it. So that's where we are now. The first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna come over here to the menu and you wanna check for updates. This is gonna tell me that the latest version is already installed. And then you're gonna check for firmware. Now, I'm not connected to a laser, so I can't do that right now, but this is where you're gonna make sure that you're connected by USB. You're gonna select your device and you're gonna make sure that that switch is to the left or the furthest away from the start button when you run this. They have gotten a little bit better about the fact that if you don't flip that, you get a little notification that tells you to do it, but just so you know, you're gonna connect here and that'll run the firmware. You wanna make sure your firmware is upgraded before you start any of this, even if you're going to start working in Lightburn. Other than that, most of the options up here are pretty self-explanatory. Under the menu button, you've got your select tool where you can select something in here. You have a pen tool to draw simple objects. The insert menu is where you can do all your different shapes and whatnot. So if you want to do, like say a circle, you go to oval. If you don't do anything, it'll give it to you like this. This is like any other graphics program. If you hit shift, it will keep it restrained and give you a perfect circle. Same goes with a square. Also, if you want to do text, you can do text in here, text. You can change your text over here. And people a lot of times ask if they can use their own fonts. And yes, as long as they're installed on your system, they will show up over here. Okay, so just remember that if you're using a separate computer to run your laser. So I'm not really gonna mess with text too much here, but you can drag it out and do things like that. I'll get rid of that. Okay, so now outline here, let's import an image. So if you wanted to import an image, you come up there, let me just grab my logo, throw that in here. All right, and that's way too big. So in order to change size, usually when you put an image in here, it'll lock it. If you do like a shape or something, you may want to make sure this is checked. But we're going to drop this down to like that. Okay, and let's just get rid of this for the time being. Okay, so now if I select this and I hit outline, it's going to give me an outline of that image. So obviously this is a circle, it's pretty easy to reproduce, but if this was like kind of an odd shape, that comes in handy. Then we come in here, you can snap to grid in there. Okay, let's see, undo, redo, pretty self-explanatory. Hand grip, as the hand grip allows you to move the whole canvas. If you hit Command and minus, it'll go further away. If you hit Command and plus, it'll bring it closer to you. Also, if you have just the select tool going and you hit spacebar and hold it down, it will give you the hand to move things. Next up, we have power and speed over here on the right of the screen. This is where you're gonna fine tune your cuts and your engraves. What I suggest to do when you're first starting out is stick with the defaults they have here. Basswood, they give you a couple of test pieces of basswood in there. Leather, stainless steel, coated metal, even corrugated fiberboard, which I think it's the setting for cardboard. Don't hold me to that though. Anyway, but as you see, as I pick different materials, these change accordingly. So these are gonna be your baselines. If you want the laser to run more than one time, you're gonna change your number of passes. Transform allows you to, I don't know why we're not, because we're selecting the wrong thing. Transform allows you to turn something around. 360 will take it all the way back around. And then upturn, this will invert images horizontally and vertically. Bidirectional means that the laser fires going both directions. So it's gonna fire going this way, and it's also gonna fire going this way. And then you've got your advanced settings down here. We are currently in gray. These are all different types of ways that this will engrave on there. I suggest to kind of play with these a little bit because they don't really show up the way they're gonna show on your final piece. But these are kind of some tried and true different kind of, I guess for lack of a better term, like filters. And then you can change your lines per centimeter. I have never had to go above 100 but you can go all the way to 300 to increase your detail. Sharpness, I usually leave sharpness at 50%. I see a lot of people run it up to 100. I haven't seen a big difference between 50 and 100, and running it to 100 is gonna slow you down. It's gonna slow down your laser. And then grayscale, you can kind of mess with it. It takes a second to kind of pop in there, but this is just gonna affect, see, it's kind of fading it out a little bit there. Sometimes you may need to play with this if you're doing photos. You get a photo in here and it's not quite right, you can tweak it a little bit there. That's that for engraving pretty much. Okay, there is one other thing, one other option I guess I need to show you, and that is when you have something that's just a line like this, you can come over here and hit fill, and it'll fill that. So now if I was going to run this right now, it would burn this image in, and it would also burn a big, just this big circle. You'll see this a lot of times with like test burns and stuff like that. Somebody will come in, they will do like they'll do a bunch of rectangles, and I'll just paste it. They'll do a bunch of these, and then they'll fill them. They'll set them to different powers and different speeds. Bring this over here. So just to kind of give you guys an idea of how this works, if you're wondering if you can do multiple layers, that's a question that we get a lot because because this doesn't have layers like light burn. Here, you can affect each thing individually. So when I pick this, when I pick this square, okay, I can change this power on this square to 100 and tab out, and then come over here, and this one's 50 and this one's 100. Each individual item that is on your canvas is individually editable with speed, power, number of passes, all that stuff. And then there's just a couple of handy tools, like when you copy and paste something, it will kind of give you the idea of how far away it is from things. Now in this case, I think it's measuring from the original one, but you can get an idea from there, and it will snap to grid to a certain degree as well. Okay, so let's get rid of these. All right, so let's just run. Let's just go through how we would do this. So here's my logo. I want to engrave this, and then I want to cut it out. So I'm going to select outline. After that, it's going to give me an outline. Now, just because I want to, I'm going to make this outline a little bit bigger. The biggest issue I have is sometimes you'll get something stuck on something else, and you can't edit the first one. So okay, let's come in here. I'm going to lock that, and I'm just going to go 120. I'm gonna make that just a little bigger, and then I'm gonna come over here. You'll see it lock in a second. There we go. So that line, so I want this to engrave, but that line I want to cut. So I'm gonna come up here, and I'm gonna go to the cut menu. Okay, so it's the same thing over here. You've got different materials that you can pick from. We're gonna pick basswood again. Let's go 4 millimeters, and you see these change, probably one pass. And now that's funny, it changed my size again, didn't it? Or it didn't save it. Okay. I'm just trying to do this so you can see it. All right, there we go. Okay, so now this purple one is gonna cut. And that's exactly what we're gonna do. We wanna engrave this, and then we wanna cut it out. Okay, so hopefully I don't sound too awful. I can't hook my mic up down here. We are gonna come up here, we're gonna connect to our laser. You can probably hear it running in the background. All right, so we're gonna come up here, we're gonna select my unit, and then you're gonna hit the start button. And that's where you get this window, and there's just a few things I wanna go over in this window as well, because this is where I think some people get confused. One thing, move this out of the way a little bit. One thing that some people don't get is that this blue dot represents where you're gonna start in your piece. So if you wanna start from the center of whatever you're working on, click here. And then when you position your laser, position that in the middle of your piece, and that will work just fine. I think people get hung up on not realizing that that's already over there, and that's why they can't center their things. A lot of times if I'm doing tumblers, I will put it here so I know that it's gonna be at the top of the piece, but we'll leave it here for now. It's a lot easier to do that, find the center of whatever you're working on, and then frame from there. So these guys right here will manually move your laser. So right now we're set to go 20 millimeters at a speed of 50 millimeters per second. So if I go up, it's gonna move 20 millimeters up, 20 millimeters down, etc., etc. I think this thing defaults to 150 or something when you first start. This is how quick your laser's gonna move always. So if you're engraving tumblers and you have to set it at 150, this is where you get that skipping, because when it's rotating so fast that like when it stops, it kind of jitters a little bit. So especially when you're doing tumblers, I usually do this at 50. If I'm doing something real small, I'll even drop it down to like 20. So it will go a lot slower. Now next up, what we're gonna do is we are going to take our laser, we're gonna position it roughly in the middle of our piece, just manually. You guys do know that this is how you focus. This little kickstand comes out. You put that on whatever you're working on, tighten your thumb screw on the other side, and then lift this out of the way. Okay, and we're in the middle of our thing, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna hit frame, and I'm not sure exactly how big this is gonna be. See how we're going real slow because I didn't turn my speed back up? But it gives you an idea. The other thing that a lot of people get concerned about is where the crosshairs are. The laser takes that into consideration. So even though the laser head's over here and this is offset, it's gonna jog over to that point before it starts. Okay, so once we have all that stuff set up, we're just gonna go ahead and hit start and let her run. While we wait for the xTool D1 to finish, I just wanted to say thanks to each and every one of you for sticking around. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments down below. If there's any projects you want me to attempt with this laser, let me know in the comments down below as well. If you like this video, hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. It really helps me out. Now, I'd like to give an extra special thanks to my patron members. Those guys are, can I say the shiznit? I think I can. They are the shiznit. Especially my Boilermaker patrons. Stephen Mann, Eric Weiss, Derek Coates, Chuck Faulkner, Puffy Muffins, Andy the Viking, Dwight Smith, Christopher Walters, Todd Stewart, and Franklin the Tanklin. Cheers, guys. Here, I'm gonna be engraving mugs later. Cheers. Whoop, I'm not putting my mouth on that. Hell no. I also have a special single shout out going out to one of our newest patrons, Don Bean. Don, you're the man. And I wish I was named Mr. Bean. But if you haven't gotten a chance to check out my Patreon page yet, I will link it down below. Go check it out. Join up if that's your thing. All right, to the laser. All right, so I did not turn my air assist on, and you can see it right there. But other than that, I think it's a pretty good result. I like it. I dig it. All right, guys, so I hope this video helped you out. I hope it shined a little bit of light on Laserbox Basic. Like I said, if you have any questions, ask them down below. And until next time, thanks for playing. Now I gotta get to work.